that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush, and George Herbert Walker, his maternal great-grandfather for whom his daddy is named, were Nazi traitors to the country who should have been tried for treason.
They want to break down the white Christian male power structure.
And I told him to his face I didn't want his policies to work.
Puritans. We say marry other Swedes, because that's the rule. Finns marry other Finns, so they have a pure society.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
Afro-Leninism coming to you on a silver platter. Barack Hussein Obama. He ain't right, President people.
And I want to say that I'm a proud right-wing terrorist.
You didn't have to go much further than the Republican National Convention. It literally looked like Nazi Germany. It really did.
After World War II, including one called the London Cage, where German prisoners were beaten, deprived of sleep, and threatened with death.
Because I believe you're brainwashed. You're just, and I hate to say it, but I think you're a brainwashed Nazi.
Be judged by your promotion and association with Hal Turner.
I don't know anybody.
Neo-Nazi.
This is nonsense.
I let you talk.
Ford actually said, I don't want anything to do with it.
Ford said if we lived up to it, we'd have to live down to it. He thought it was a terrible code. He also thought it was unconstitutional. He said we're not ready to be like Russia just yet. He refused to allow General Motors did go along with the code. Ford did not, and so Ford was denied access to any government contract on automobiles. And he submitted bids for it.
It's like you're all brainwashed. And my last comment is, no matter what Obama does, you will still criticize him, because I believe you're brainwashed. You're just, and I hate to say it, but I think you're a brainwashed Nazi.
Third story, there are jokes to be made about what Mr. Beck does and how his employers permit him to do it, but not when he throws out accusations that a teenage Jewish boy collaborated with those who destroyed his family, his religion, his nation. All week long, Mr. Beck has dedicated TV and radio shows to taking down the man he calls the puppet master. According to Beck, George Soros intends to destroy America as we know it so he can create a new world order with one world government.
From these liars, these right-wing liars. Walk away from them. They're not looking out for you.
Sat there and you were lying, sat the dog mess.
I lied to the audience.
Oh, you're a reporter. No, I am not. So you check no facts at all, right?
These right-wing liars. Walk away from them. They're not looking out for you.
I lied to the audience.
I mean, they're misleading you. They're lying to you. They're rich, these guys. Big cigar. All of that.
Dream beyond the grasp of man. Until now, the world we've known has been a world divided, a world of barbed wire and concrete block, conflict, Cold War. Now we can see a new world coming into view, a world in which there is the very real prospect of a new world order. The Gulf War put this new world to its first test. And my fellow Americans, we passed that test.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
Beck begins his conspiracy theory with Soros as a teenager. The following is what we know about Soros. The Daily Beast writing today, quote, when Soros was 14 in Nazi-occupied Hungary, his father bribed an agriculture official to pretend that the boy was his Christian godson. Soros once had to accompany his protector to inventory a confiscated Jewish estate. Clearly, they did not see what Mr. Beck said. Joining us now, Simon Greer, President and CEO of Jewish Funds for Justice. Mr. Greer, thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Keith.
Those who are recognizing your name here may do so because they might remember that you've been a target of Mr. Beck. Last May, he had said that your claim that putting the common good first was, in his words, what leads to death camps, and in his words, as a Jew, you should know better. You had a meeting with the Fox people about that. Explain what happened.
That's right. I sat down with Roger Ailes and Joel Cheatwood of Fox News earlier this summer, and I conveyed to them my horror and my outrage. I simply asked them that if I sat with my son and watched their TV program night after night and heard the 400 references to Hitler, Holocaust, and Nazis, what would I say to them? What would I tell my child? Would I say it's a joke? Would I say we should be scared? And they said there was unanimous agreement at Fox that the ultimate sensitivity needed to be displayed in reviewing and looking at issues related to the Holocaust and the events that led up to it. And I believed at the time that they were sincere in their commitments, and obviously what we've seen this week shows that they were not.
Did you get some idea that Mr. Ailes or anybody had talked to Mr. Beck about this?
I did. I actually received a handwritten note from Mr. Beck 2 days later where he expressed that he felt how serious this issue was, that he had sensitivity to it, that he took my candor and my concerns to heart, and I actually believed for a minute that his values were values and that he would stand by them and keep his word. And this week, the invocation of anti-Semitic rhetoric and a form of Holocaust revisionism shows that clearly he will do anything to score political points, and the Jewish community won't stand for it.
These comments about Soros, who was one of the victims of this atrocity, and in both the small, focused on his life, and the larger one of the Second World War in the years leading up to it, is that defined? Is the term anti-Semitism enough to describe that? Isn't this with an asterisk? Isn't this is anti-Semitism in the remarks by Mr. Beck, but it's also an accusation of collaboration, which is about the worst thing you could do in this circumstance, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that it is a form of Holocaust revisionism, which is grotesque in any form, and suggesting these kind of things is completely outrageous. using it to try to paint a picture of this notion of a puppet master takes us back to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, some of the worst anti-Semitic texts in the last 100 years, and it somehow makes it okay again to bring up these stories and these images. And Keith, what I would say is what we've seen across the Jewish community is, there's this old saying that for every 2 Jews there are 3 opinions, and this week there's only one opinion in the Jewish community, and that's that Glenn Beck is way out of line. I think the comments from Alon Steinberg from the American Gathering of Jewish Holocaust Survivors, who said Beck's remarks were monstrous, the quote from Abe Foxman that you mentioned earlier, I think we're seeing that whether people disagree or agree with Mr. Soros on politics, what they know is that we slip into a very dangerous place.